I'm licensed battlefield guide Fran Fiat. When you become a guide, the first mantra that they give you is always give the best tour that the customer will allow you to give. In this case, the best tour that I can give will be the customer of US Route 30. This marker is about 2 to 3 miles east of the square of Gettysburg. Now, because of the traffic jam, we're going to have to do something a little bit different. We're going to have to adapt. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to talk about Camp Letterman, 300-second style. I'm licensed battlefield guide Fran Fiat.
It is much safer being in here and doing Camp Letterman this way. Now, if Gettysburg was the typical Civil War battle, not a 3-day battle, soldiers wounded on the battlefield would go from a field aid station, a first aid station, a dressing station. From there, they would be moved to a field hospital to have surgery, and then they would be shipped off to recuperate in a large general hospital in some big city, like this one in Washington City. Following the battle, it's estimated that there were over 20,000 casualties on this field. Among those 20,000, 5,400 were Confederates. These soldiers were scattered among field hospitals all over the area. Henry Janes, the guy that will be in charge of all the field hospitals, said there were 60, but Greg Coco in his book A Vast Sea of Misery has defined 174. Things are too scattered to take care of these soldiers and transfer them to large general hospitals in the city. They need a temporary way station where they can be put together and safely transported to the large hospitals on the East Coast. So when we started this video, this is where I was standing by the marker. This marker marks the location of the Camp Letterman. Now this marker is located on Route 30 east of the town of Gettysburg, known as the York Pike. This camp you can see safely across the road. I want to caution you that although you see the panoramic view and you can look into Camp Letterman, it is private property. You are not permitted to go up there. It is safest to view it from across the road. So this panoramic view that you saw on the previous slide is done with the camera facing the way the red arrow is looking and pointing to the red dot, which is that monument. You're looking into about half of Camp Letterman. There's a ridge at the top of the back of the camp marked by the tree line. To the right is a lot of modern development there. There's the hotel is on your right. There's the giant store. There's a gas station. And inside the green circle, you'll find the McDonald's, the Arby's, and the Haas's. Once again, this is private property. You're not permitted. Now we know that Camp Letterman will open on the 20th of July, 1863 and close on November 20th, 1863. The photo you're seeing here is taken from Seminary Ridge, looking east, looking out the York Pike. The orange arrow points to a group of tents in the horizon. Those group of tents are Camp Letterman, where I was standing early this morning. This is Camp Letterman in 1863. This piece of ground that Camp Letterman will occupy is part of a large farm east of the town of Gettysburg owned by George Wolfe. And locally they knew it as Wolfe's Woods because it was a popular picnic area because of its shady grove and its beautiful views of the area. Now, Camp Letterman, principal players, of course, are Jonathan Letterman. He is the medical officer for the Army of the Potomac. General Herman Howe is going to be responsible for the railroad and supplies and taking out wounded soldiers. His railroad is very close to the upper left-hand corner, the yellow line next to the York Pike. And Dr. Henry Janes. Dr. Henry Janes is the person Letterman will put in charge when he leaves on July 6th to go with the Union Army. Henry Janes is in charge of all the hospitals located in and around Gettysburg. Dr. Henry Janes establishes Camp Letterman on Wolfe's Woods for several important reasons. First of all, the railroad and the roads are important to move soldiers out. Secondly, there's a large supply of fresh water with at least 2 springs, and more importantly, more springs could be dug later. And more importantly, the land gently sloped away towards York Pike, taking drainage away from the sick and wounded soldiers. Although they did not know much about diseases and particularly how they work, everybody realized that a clean, healthy environment with fresh air and controlling of liquids that hit the ground and fluids would help enhance the survival of the soldiers. Now, we do talk an awful lot about battle damage and battle wounds, but we just want to stop here for a second to tell you how important the physical characteristics of that piece of land are for these recovering soldiers. 2/3 of all soldiers that die in the American Civil War do not die of wounds they receive in battle. The majority of them die from diseases, common diseases, caused by infection that they still do not understand. The water and the drainage at Camp Letterman are very critical components to getting these soldiers well enough to recover and, more importantly, placed on trains to head to the large city hospitals on the East Coast. Camp Letterman is really not much different than hospitals that we see today. Every hospital has a place to prepare food and meals. That's the pink area. It has a general ward, a place where the patients recover, a hospital ward. Camp Letterman also had operating and surgical tents. These soldiers would need additional surgeries to remove pieces of their bodies that weren't healing well to do that, and they also need water by those operating tents. Camp Letterman also has roads that bring patients in and take them out. Very much so, it has all the characteristics of a modern hospital with admission, discharge, surgical areas, kitchen areas. There's places to bring supplies in, places to handle trash. Camp Letterman is a powerful hospital, although a temporary one, located here at Gettysburg. One of the things we'd like to point out is that those hospital tents where surgery was being performed were being performed under the effects of a general anesthetic. Chloroform and ether were used with remarkable safety by both North and South. Very rare that a person would bite on a bullet or bite on a strap, only for minor things, maybe like pulling a separated shoulder into place. But the surgery at Camp Letterman was being done with very safe and very powerful anesthetics. One of the more remarkable books on this battle is A Journey in Time, done by William Frazzanito. In his book, William Frazzanito, or Bill as the guides call him, has a set of exposures of Camp Letterman, 4 separate photos taken sometime in mid-September 1863 following a celebration or a entertainment of sorts. Guides forever have been trying to hook these 4 photos up to produce the photo that you have here in front of you. Greg Dulek of Johnstown, Pennsylvania took this on as a challenge for me, took the 4 photos and using photo editing equipment hooked them together, and for the first time you can see Camp Letterman in all its glory. Now, Camp Letterman is set up and you are looking into the town of Gettysburg, which is way off in the distance. This camp has all the tents set up. You can see the drainage. The brown line placed on this map marks the ridge line at the top of the hill at Camp Letterman from the photo. On the other side of the ridge line was the hospital's graveyard site. It's the perfect place for a graveyard. As you can see, the drainage moves away from the soldiers. This graveyard might be the real Soldiers' National Cemetery. Soldiers dying at Camp Letterman were placed in the graves in the order in which they departed the earth. There was no consideration given for separating them between soldiers from the north and soldiers from the south. Camp Letterman might be the real soldiers' cemetery in that soldiers from Virginia are buried right next to soldiers from Massachusetts. Soldiers from Alabama right next to New Yorkers and Pennsylvanians. This cemetery on the other side of Camp Letterman is the first true Soldiers' National Cemetery here at Gettysburg.
I certainly hope that wasn't too bad and you enjoyed a few minutes of learning about the other battle that occurs here at Gettysburg, one that's too often forgotten. For 300 seconds, this is Licensed Battlefield Guide Fran Fiat.